All right. Hey, everyone. Time for Puzzle Talk, the geocaching puzzle podcast brought to you by the Geocache Talk Network. If you'd like to become a patron, click on the Become a Patron link on the front page of the Geocache Talk website. That's the heart on the page there. Or you can head over to patreon.com/geocache talk for more details. Patrons get the now famous Blackout coin and other geocaching items during the year, as well as bonus content and invites to special events only for patrons. Support levels start at as little as Bison Tube level. That is $3 a month. Well, let me welcome to Puzzle Talk for tonight, Mr. Charles Watkins, Pathfinder 33, and Tom Brotherman, Electric Water Boy.
That guy right there.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Howdy, howdy.
Have you recovered?
No.
No.
I should have called in sick or something. Next year. Hey, Lori Post got it.
Oh, did Lori get it?
Lori
Good
got
job, Lori.
That took of all of 1 minute.
Yeah,
that's right.
She did it at 8:01. Sure, I got it. That's great. Oh, Bill Miller's iced tea. That's got to be Tom.
Yep.
And most people don't know about Bill Miller's. I always loved Bill Miller's, but I'm surprised.
Bill Miller's.
I'm glad they're still around. Bill Miller's sweet tea is like you could eat it with a spoon. Bill Miller's sweet tea.
I get the unsweet.
Oh, do you? Okay. you could put a spoon in Bill Miller's sweet tea and it'll stand up.
It'll stand up straight.
That's right.
Yeah. So obviously, big news is Podcast of Hope was this last weekend.
That's right.
We raised a ton of money and want to say thank you to all of our viewers for contributing. We couldn't have done this without you. We're just a little old show, but we're grateful and thankful for every last one of our people who donated to helping St. Jude's and childhood cancer. We really appreciate it. We're up over the $10,000 mark. Our link stays good for 30 days. So if you want to, if you missed the Podcast of Hope and didn't get to donate, but you would still like to donate to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, please, the link's down there at the bottom. I promise you, every last penny counts.
Yes.
And they squeeze everything they can out of every last penny that's donated. So please, if you are financially in a position to where you can still help us donate to St. Jude's, please, we encourage you to do so. And thank you to everyone who has. We got up and over the $10,000 mark and shattered our goal of $8,000. So thank you.
And our guests are pretty cool too. There was that one boring girl from New York that you couldn't get to say much.
She's a firecracker, ain't she?
Oh my gosh.
She's got a lot of fines too. She's got to be her, and I guess Barsky is kind of a celebrity. I mean, he's a television producer. I kind of consider him a little bit of a celebrity, but
but who would you rather have as a tool in the car with you, Barsky or
Stephanie
or Action Trinity?
Yeah, Action Trinity. Stephanie, can you climb a tree? Oh, absolutely.
There's a cache 100 feet up that tree. Can you go get it?
Not a problem. She'll leap out of it.
That's it.
Make a perfect landing.
On fire.
Yes, on fire. Yes, Albedo, it was a fun night. It was. Lots of pressure. No, there's never a lot of pressure. We just keep upping our game a little bit, I guess, in different ways. But yeah, she was a lot of fun, and you guys were great. We had a lot of fun with the network doing different things, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think for next time we need to like put a thing up once it hits 10 o'clock and say this is Geocache Talk After Dark. And
After dark. Yeah.
because I know you didn't intend it that way, but that one game headed that way pretty quick.
Yeah, it did, but that's okay. That's all right.
That was fun though.
It was. You guys want to talk a little bit about this?
What is that?
Yeah, what is? Wait, did we announce that?
We did announce that. You were there.
You spilled the beans, didn't you?
Send help. He's got
The help.
He's got the paddle. That's good.
We could set Twonky on fire. That's
Yeah, there you go. Well, that would be bad, but yeah, we spilled the beans. Worldwide Cache Con 2021, January 30th, 10 a.m. in the morning Central Time till 6 p.m. Also Central Time
on a Saturday, so we don't have to
Saturday.
call in sick the next day.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
There won't be a regular show probably on Sunday of that week. I don't know how many shows will be postponed. I wouldn't say postponed. How do I put it? They're all going to be kind of lumped into that one because we're spending a lot of time. We're already starting to spend a lot of time on Worldwide Cache Con, but Worldwide Cache Con is going to be great. It's going to be very different. It's not a podcast, so if you have friends that don't like podcasts but want to go, want to watch something else different, then this is the event. Obviously for caching, so they're geocachers, but they'd want to watch more of a show, like you're watching a television show. It's going to be more probably formatted like that. So. But really
first came up with it though, I thought it was a crazy idea. When you run that up the flagpole, ain't nobody gonna salute. And as usual, I was wrong with that kind of stuff.
If I may, let me show a very, very short video from Sunday night with our president, our fearless leader, Brian Roth.
Yeah,
but
you do. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
Go for it. All right, here we go.
But we
would
like to talk about something tonight that we're hoping would be a good, positive addition to the community. I don't know, Gary, Brian, either one of y'all want to take it from here?
I'm happy to talk about it a little bit.
Go for it.
So we'll take a step back and just say that you guys approached us and you said, hey, we've got an idea. Everybody's on lockdown. This game has changed. We have an idea of something that we can do for the community. And we said, okay, what does this look like? What can we do? Do you want me to tell everybody? Are we ready for that?
Yeah, go. Let's do it. So, let's finally give the word. So,
okay.
Derek, I think, has got a graphic we're going to bring up too. So go ahead, though. Go ahead, Brian.
So on January 30th,
yep.
the Geocache Talk Network is putting on something that will be called a Worldwide Cache Con 2021. And it's basically going to be an online geocaching convention. It's not a mega event. It's not a regular event. There's no souvenirs or anything like that, but it's an opportunity for geocachers to get together and there's going to be a digital presentation starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. And it's going to run 6 p.m. is when sort of the closing ceremony starts. And I don't want to give away too much about the schedule, but it's kind of a full day, almost like what you would see on stage at a mega event throughout the course of the day, except that everybody's going to be able to participate from home and tune in. It's a way for us to get that community feeling without being all together. And it's something where, for Geocaching HQ, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to promote it. We're going to try and tell everybody this is open to all geocachers all over the world.
Yep.
Again, Worldwide Cache Con 2021, thanks to the Geocache Talk Network. And I know I'll be participating and a bunch of other a bunch of other folks will be participating, and hopefully everybody wants to tune in. And it's going to be just one of those things that hasn't exactly been done before, but I know everybody is super excited about it. And these guys are really the ones to be credited with the idea and the execution. And HQ is really just playing a support role.
Yep.
But we're super excited to see it happen.
Well, there you go.
You got to give you more credit, Gary, because you really didn't spill the beans even when it was time to spill the beans. You let Brian do it.
Let Brian do it. Well, it always looks good when the president does it. So, yes. Will there be vendors involved? Good question, Lori. Yeah, we've already been talking to them a little bit. They're going to be providing lots of different things. I know that at the very least, I know all of them want to take a moment and give a chance for discounts. They want to sell their wares, and a lot of them can't. Most of them sell their product at events, and right now it's a little tough to sell at an event when there isn't really many events. So it's going to be great to give them a chance to be part of that. And Sherry, that was at 10 o'clock that night.
Yeah, we hit 10,000.
We were 8, but we went all the way up to 10. So we were pretty excited we went over 10. So there's your fundraising.stjude.org/POH 2020. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of cool things that'll be involved. Yes, virtual brisket will be there, so we'll slice you up some brisket. And
That's right.
I know Charles
can have virtual. I'm gonna get the real thing.
He has some homemade salsa he's made that he's going to virtually provide to everybody. So
that's right. You gotta risk it for the brisket, baby.
Right. That's Bucky's. All right. Enough of that. Just stay tuned for more about Worldwide Cash Con as the time goes on. So there you go.
That's right. All right. So getting into tonight's show.
Yep.
Coordinates.
Coordinates.
This was a show idea that was thrown out that got sent to me. I think it was sent to me through the messenger service for one of our people who won one of my tags. I think Nicole is the one that sent it to me and said, hey, I'd like, this would be a cool show about coordinates. And so we're going to talk about coordinate formats and how to convert in between the two, because there are some puzzles, some multi-caches that require you to know different coordinate formats. And so with that, we've got some tools for you to use. Like always, geocachingtoolbox.com is going to be a go-to for this. They have a coordinate converter feature on there. Tom dropped in the show notes about PhysiCalc. I don't think I have ever used PhysiCalc at all. So Tom,
PhysiCalc will only do the degrees, minutes, seconds, UTM, and I can't remember what the other one is. I think it's just degrees, minutes, or degrees, minutes, seconds, or UTM. It only does those 4. Where Geocaching Toolbox does a boatload of them.
Right. And I'm going to share my screen. I put in the show notes a website for pgc.umn.edu/apps/convert. It's a University of Minnesota website. And so, it's in here somewhere.
I'm adding it to the banner so people can see it as well.
And so this is what their website looks like.
Okay. That looks cool.
You'll convert between decimal degrees, degrees decimal minutes, degrees minutes seconds. It'll give you your WGS 84 for your polar regions and for for your North Pole and South Pole. So it'll give you, because obviously as coordinates get closer, these things get really wonky, and so it converts a bunch of stuff. But this is one that I use to convert between decimal degrees and degrees, decimal minutes, or whatnot for some puzzle caches that I have done in the past that give you coordinates in different formats. So there's that as a resource for people to use.
You know, one of the common mistakes I hear people say with our coordinates, they'll say degrees, minutes, seconds, and that's not what geocaching.com uses. It's just degrees, minutes.
Yeah, it's a degrees and decimal minutes. So you got degrees, and then you got a 2 minutes, decimal point, 3 sub-minute groups.
Yeah, you're out to minutes to 3 places.
I always thought those were seconds, but yeah,
No.
that makes more sense.
Right. And so if you don't know what your coordinate format actually looks like,
Right.
you could be thinking that you're in one when you're definitely not. And it makes a huge difference in where you actually are standing in the world. Sometimes when you're when you have punched your coordinates incorrectly into the wrong format, you could end up thousands of feet off somewhere else.
Which I know y'all will get into. Another one that was shared with us tonight, Sanders Sooners brought up Cache Sleuth. Pull that one up, Charles, and talk a little bit about Cache Sleuth. I think that's a pretty cool site. We're gonna have to add that to the Wiki Bruce if he's I don't know if he's in tonight. We'll have to send him a note, but pull up old Cache Sleuth. That's a pretty slick little one there. Thank you for that.
Oh, there's it.
You know, I said geocaching.com just uses degrees, minutes, but your handheld GPS will do whatever you want it to do.
Will it do seconds?
At least most of them will. It'll do second. You can put in a degree, minute, second format if you wanted to.
Oh, okay.
But if you try to put degrees, minutes into a GPS setup for degrees, minutes, seconds, you're not going to end up where you think you're going to.
Right.
All right, here we go. So here's the Cache Sleuth, and
roll down a little bit. You can see go ahead.
They have a coordinate converter and map link right here, and so as you come down, I'm assuming that if you type in a coordinate here, it will then convert it to every other format. So there's your antipode, plus code, MGRS, UTM, geohash. I don't know what geohash is. What 3 words? We'll talk about that.
I've heard of geohash. I can't remember what that is.
And it'll give you an elevation for it as well. So
yeah, pretty slick.
Let's try this real quick.
It'll do all sorts of stuff.
See if I can make this. Let's see. Well, it's not going to let me copy and paste.
Thanks, Hugh. Yeah, it was a good night. It was a lot of. If you noticed, I didn't get up. I sat there for 8 straight hours. I know everybody else kind of moved around, but I actually made it. Very carefully. Didn't move much at the end because I was needing to use the facilities, but I wanted to wait till we were done. So, and I didn't get to bed till like almost 2 that night. I couldn't because you got a little adrenaline flowing at that point.
Oh, man, I got to bed, moved the dogs over, and I was out.
You were out like a light. Gone. Anyway, that's another one. We'll add all these. I'll send these to Mr. Wiki Bruce, and we'll get him to add those to the tool of all tools, the Wiki Bruce.
Oh yeah, I figured it out. Hang on, let me.
Okay, you're fine.
Not having ever done this before was So up here at the top, there was a spot to enter coordinates. And so I entered a set of coordinates from a geocaching page that we'll show later. But it gives you your degrees, your degree decimal minutes, your decimal degrees, your degrees minutes and seconds, your elevation, what 3 words, antipode, plus code, your MGRS, and UTM, geohash, and your natural area code.
Oh, cool.
So, and then there's a QR code that gets you to, and this is exactly where this map right here is exactly where the first stage to a multi-cache is, down here at a telephone pole, out here in northern Colorado, just south of the Wyoming border. So yeah, that is a neat tool. Thank you, Sanders Sooners, for throwing that out there. We'll have to get that added into our screen of tools.
Yeah, I threw that in the show notes, but yeah, we'll add that to Wiki Bruce, because that's we're trying to get everything put into one just so that it's easier for people to best we can try to put everything in one.
Antipode, that was a 50-cent word in there. I
I
have
know,
a poster
isn't it?
that uses that.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
That's a good one.
Let's see if I can.
And I know I've done one with geohash too, but I forgot all about that one. But natural area code, I've never seen that, so that's got my gears in my head clanging right now.
Right.
Your antenna popped up. What?
Oh,
Wait a minute, what
natural area code, I can come up with something for that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go over a couple of these formats and let people look at them. That way, in case for whatever reason people don't know what they're looking at, hopefully we'll help figure some of that out. So we're going to share these real quick. It's our show notes.
You want me to bring that?
I'm going to share
I've got it in a Word file. You want me to bring that up where it's
that?
I've got it in a Word file where it doesn't show everything all at once. If you want me to bring that up.
Nah, we'll be all right.
All right.
See if we can look at that. And then I can scroll over like that. Look at
That looks good.
All right, so there's your degrees and decimal minutes at the top. This is what is typically what geocaching.com uses as a coordinate format. They also use UTM, but this is the one that is the default for the geocaching.com website. Below that is the degrees, minutes, seconds, right? So you have your 29 degrees, 35 minutes, and 0.00 seconds, right? Whereas the top one is 29 degrees, and then it's 35.000 minutes, right?
Yeah. Works everywhere, Hugh. Is that what you're saying? Will work, or is it just for the USA? No, you can't just say someplace in Canada. You can say someplace in the US. That doesn't really work down here, but anyway, we do use go down to the first tree, take a right, so that works too.
Yeah. And then there's decimal degrees. Decimal degrees is what a lot of hikers, backpackers, mountain climbers use, because decimal degrees or UTM is what most climbing maps are done in.
Okay, cool.
It's easy for UTM and decimal degrees is easy to convert, easy to use on the fly. It converts very easily. So you have decimal degrees is 29.58333333 degrees, right? And then more or less, this is roughly true. Obviously, the further you go north, it doesn't hold as true, but generally speaking, the fifth digit in the decimal degrees.
Uh-huh.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this third 3, if you stopped right there, that 3, if you went from 3 to 4, you move roughly 1 meter north, right? So the fifth digit in decimal degrees is roughly the meter spot. So
So 58334
is 1 meter north of
58333.
58333.
Okay. Oh, okay.
More or less.
Right.
And the same for the west coordinates, right, or the east coordinates, depending on which hemisphere you're in. This also works for going south for our Aussie friends.
Right.
But 3333, the fifth digit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that 3 right there, the last one that's highlighted, if it was a 4 or a 2, moves you roughly 1 meter in space, left or right.
Oh, okay.
East or west.
East
right?
to west. Yeah.
And then the fifth digit. So that comes into play because I've had a couple of caches where they tell you to add 512 meters to your north coordinates and subtract 418 meters from your west coordinates and go to that spot. And so it was a projection waypoint on a multi-cache, but if you didn't understand that where to start adding your meters at least in decimal degrees, that fifth digit is the one that you start adding for single meters. And it will more or less get you where you need to go.
Oh, okay. Fifth digit is kind of the last is for meters. Okay. Or well, yeah.
Right.
That's interesting. So do you think that when people, is there, I guess by looking at the format, you can kind of get an idea of if the person, the cache owner is more than likely wanting you to think like a mountain climber.
Yeah.
Well, if you make the connection, because if you don't think about decimal degrees and you're stuck in degrees, decimal minutes, well, you get the numbers. If we just use what's up here, you're going to get the first 2 numbers right. You'll say 29, and you'd say, "Hey, I'm onto something."
Right.
And they may have the west separate, and you get the 98, and you say, "Yeah, I've got this figured out."
Yeah.
And then you hit that 5.8 instead of 3.5, and you're like,
yeah, 5.8.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, you got it exactly right. Keep going. But if you don't know, know the other systems, you're kind of hosed.
The other thing to this is that all of these coordinate formats right here that Tom pulled for us, the DDM, the DMS, the DD, the UTM, the MGRS, and the what 3 words, all of these coordinates are the exact same spot on the planet, right? And so you can look at them and say, this would, so if they give you coordinates in a certain format that you're not used to, they're probably doing that for a reason, right? To up the difficulty on it. But at the same time, if you don't know what format you need to be in to make some of what they're doing happen, you obviously can tell by putting a wrong number in somewhere, you end up in a completely different spot. So the UTM and the MGRS are both close to each other.
Right.
UTM's 14 Romeo, that tells you which the planet is divided up into what is it?
Weird.
1,000 meter squares, right? So there are kilometer squares, and different sections of the map have different numbers. So 14 Romeo versus 14 Tango is a completely different section of the map. So when people give you coordinates in UTM and they tell you you need to be at 14 Romeo or 14 Sierra or 14 Tango, that letter is important because that is a completely different section of the map of the world, off by a 1,000 kilometers, right?
1 kilometer, 1,000 meters. No,
No,
it's big.
It's 1,000 kilometers. So your 14 Romeo grid identifier, map identifier, is 1,000 kilometers by 1,000 kilometers square, right?
okay. Because I got a weird picture I could show you guys too. You can talk about, Charles, if you want me to share the.
Yeah, let me get through this real quick.
Yeah, no problem. I was going to show you the MGRS. I found one's weird photo. Well,
yeah,
it's UTM. It talks about this. It shows the grids, which I thought was interesting.
Right. So the one thing about UTM and MGRS is they have what are called eastings and northings, or they're westings and southings,
Southings, eastings, northings.
So they give you your east coordinates first, right? So you need to go east, whatever this designation is, 564,566 meters or
gotcha.
whatnot. And then north, your northings. So it has you run and then rise on the map. And then MGRS is roughly the same way. Your 14 Romeo November Tango is your section of the world in which you're working in, right? Your 14 Romeo, and then November Tango is another grid identifier in there. But this gives you what in the military is called a 10-digit grid: 64566 72802. So the first 5 digits of this are your eastings.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then your second set of 5 digits is your northings. And what this does is a 10-digit grid gives you plus or minus 1 square meter on the ground. Right. So if this entire coordinate right here is plus or minus 1 meter on the ground, right? And so the less accurate your coordinates are. So if you only had an 8-digit grid is plus or minus 10 meters. A 6-digit grid is plus or minus 100 meters, right? So it gives you in the ballpark. It depends on whether you're trying to shoot a missile through a window, or if you're just trying to drop an atom bomb on a town and destroy it. Right?
You don't need
it depends on how accurate you need it to be.
Right.
And so a 10-digit grid is plus or minus one square meter on the ground. In theory, the military could use that coordinate system, launch a missile, and impact the ground plus or minus 1 meter to where this place really is. So in the military, a 10-digit grid was like the creme de la creme of GPS readings. And so and that was as accurate as you more or less could be on the ground, at least in the day.
So when you were doing your Army Pathfinder y'all used MGRS probably because of the military.
Oh yeah, that was the only thing that we used.
Yeah.
At the time I had we had what was called a plugger, PLUGR, is a giant handheld GPS unit like the size of a Quaker Oats box,
Right.
and it just was monstrous. It was like the car phones in Miami Vice, you could carry it around in a little purse. But
Right.
it spit out MGRS, and it would also spit out a couple of other formats, kind of depending on what your application was. But those things were, for as big and bulky as they really were fairly accurate. And then there's what 3 words in down here.
Yep.
So all of these coordinate formats put you at the same spot on the planet. And so just by looking at it, you can tell that there's differences between them. Knowing what those differences are kind of will help you navigate through some puzzle caches, and then even some multi-caches, as we'll take a look at here. I've got one example to show.
Cool.
And so there you go.
Nice.
And that was all pulled out.
Bert Turtles wants to buy one of those, by the way, if you still have your plugger.
Yeah.
Maybe not be available to the
the Army's done several upgrades since those old school pluggers. But what we had some on display at Geo Woodstock at the maze.
I was going to ask, that one in the maze, was that a plugger?
Yeah, and that was on loan to us from
Carrot Killer.
Yeah, Carrot Killer got it. Carrot Killer's active duty stationed at Fort Hood, and he got it on loan and got permission to bring it to us for the display. And so it was kind of neat, but the military, he signed it out from the arms room and was on the hook for it. So if it went missing,
right,
probably wouldn't have been a good day for him in the end.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. So those are the different formats for people who don't know what they look like or didn't know that there was more than just the 2 formats that geocaching.com uses, and whatnot. So yeah.
So going back to that plugger for a minute, and Burnt Turtles wants one. I just need you to remind you can't go buy batteries for that thing at Walmart.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The batteries in that thing were something else, and those things were.
It's a single battery, and it's about that big around.
It was huge,
and it was about that. It's about 6 inches long.
Yeah.
Weighed about 37 pounds.
But yeah, there's a little screw top. It comes off. You dump the battery down in it, and then it's got a giant antenna that you got to flip up, whatnot. The fun part about that is that I learned later on in my military career that they had some of those that were encrypted.
Oh.
For that special forces people used, and they could send text messages back and forth between plugger devices. I didn't know, when I was a little private, they didn't teach me all that.
Didn't teach all that good stuff.
No, when I'm trying to make, when I got to a point in my career where I was doing some more high-speed stuff, that stuff came out, and I was like, no way, really? So kind of neat. But when you're just a lowly private in the Army, they don't teach you all that fun stuff unless you need to know. So
yeah, because you'd be texting your buddies, bring beer and ammo. That order.
So, yeah, if we had beer, we had to sneak some of that stuff too. So
I wanted to show this real quick so you can kind of maybe explain. This is the MGRS grid for the South Pole.
Oh, that's not the arena set up for the ZZ Top concert. That's kind of
No,
what it
you're
looks
not
like.
seating it, but
yeah,
I'll try to make it larger so people can see the. Can I get it to go bigger without goofing up my whole screen? Maybe not. That's decent, I guess. But so when you're talking about these squares, they change size because of the Earth is not. You can't. The Earth is not two-dimensional.
So, all right. So the South Pole is really a bad choice to use for this.
There's the North Pole.
Yeah, that's not a. So let me.
Not a good example either, maybe.
Yeah, that's not a good example either.
Trying to get to work better, but it doesn't. My screen keeps changing, but that's okay.
Hang on, because I've got one here.
Okay.
Is this? So this is what it looks like. So here's your
Mercator projection.
right. So here's 18 Tango, right?
Oh, okay. I got
This is so when you're looking at this, so this 18 Tango, New York City is right at the south end of it. So if you jump over to an 18 Tango covers this whole square right here. Let me see if I can make this a little. There we go.
That's
So
better.
this 18 Tango square right here covers almost all of the New England states. If you look, 19 Tango covers Maine down to Boston, right? So there's 19 Tango.
So
this 20 Tango covers Prince Edward Island and whatnot out here in Canada. So when they sit there and give you these, mapping nomenclature designators, it covers a huge swath of land. So like 17 Romeo is Florida.
Right.
And southern Georgia and maybe a portion of Alabama down here as well. And so if you're in the wrong square, so if you're supposed to be in 13 Sierra, which is, well, let's do this. If you were in 14 Romeo is down here in South Texas where my pointer is.
Yeah.
And so if you were off one, either one direction or the other, if you were off by 13 instead of 14 Romeo, you're off in El Paso instead of Central Texas.
Yeah. But what's interesting though is that MGRS is really kind of a cool idea though for puzzles, for puzzle caches.
It is. Now there's some really neat stuff about, and we kind of talked about some of this. If you look over Europe, right, there are some, all of a sudden you get these like really wonky big squares.
Right.
And then you get this one right here that's really a small, this 31 Victor is a really weird small one.
Why is it?
And then 32 Victor is a bigger square. And so they kind of have gone in and done that for one, for mapping purposes. There's nothing in 31 Victor except open ocean.
Well, yeah, but there's others in open ocean too. But yeah.
But if it was a full size square, it would cut just the end of.
I see.
Sweden out and put it in a completely different map square, and then you only have just the very tips of some of this, and so you can see in here where it's these oddball ones are done in red for you to show you where like 31 Victor, like this is the 3 degrees mark. You obviously can see where 0 runs
Huh.
and whatnot. So it's the MGRS has some weird spots on the map in Northern Europe. And then, like your map showed, I don't know if I can.
So
If-
31 vectors, so the Swedes don't have to carry 2 maps. It's not because we're hiding
That's-
Atlantis under there.
That's well, I'm not going to go that far. They may be.
They're hiding something there.
Right, but as you saw on the maps that you were showing, there's a Yankee and a Zulu in the north.
Yeah.
At the north hemisphere, and if you look down here at the bottom, there's an Alpha and a Bravo in the South Pole in Antarctica, and they're really the interior portions of this Alpha and Bravo sections of the map are really odd compared to the rest of the map.
Right.
And so it's unless you have a reason to be down this far south or that far north in the northern hemisphere, there's no real reason for us to try and go over those particulars of the map. It just is something that most people would probably have a hard time grasping. But you can see here the map starts down at Alpha and Bravo. Then
Over
Charlie.
to Australia real quick. I just want to see, does Australia have go the go there you go.
Bloop. And
Yeah,
so,
theirs is fairly normal looking, but
yeah, and
they
so
cover
they're in the
H.
Juliet,
okay.
Kilo, Lima grid
Yeah.
pairs, anywhere from, what is this, 50 to 56.
Yeah.
So they're kind of, they're down there. And
Look at the western end Look at the western end of Australia. It looks like they've got a little bit in 2 grids by itself. So
yeah.
And Tasmania is in its own. But it's interesting is I love maps. I've looked at maps all my life, but I always forget that in my mind, I always think New Zealand is due east. I mean, the due east of Australia. It's not. It's southeast of Australia.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's due east of Tasmania.
Darren wants to tell you that 53K is the place to be.
Hey, Darren needs to keep an eye out on his post office box. I sent his winnings package out to him the other day. I don't know how long the Aussies are going to keep his package from me in quarantine, but it is on its way, Darren. So keep an eye out on the mailbox. Let us know when it gets there. And you're right. 53 kilo is probably the
place to be.
That's the square to be right there. So.
That's good. All right, good. I didn't want to. Yeah, so I appreciate that. MGRS is interesting to me.
Yeah, and it's different. And if you're not used to using it and you hear somebody spout it off, you might mistake it for UTM coordinates.
Right.
All of the geocaches that were in Iraq were all put into. There was a spot. I don't know if it's still there. For a longest time, you had to put in there what the MGRS coordinates for your geocaches were.
Right.
That way people could use military GPS devices while they were off duty to go find geocaches hidden in a combat zone country. But well, there you go. Hopefully it gets there soon, brother. I sent some out. I think the Canadians got theirs today. Yeah, I sent a couple of packages to Canada. They got theirs today. I haven't heard. I sent a package to the Kiwis off in New Zealand. And so we'll see when the Kiwis get their mail. They're pretty good about letting me know that their stuff gets there. So we'll see how it goes. And then just keep an eye out. It's on its way, brother. So.
Interesting though, something that Tom would do, because most people go, "Oh, UTM, I got this puzzle cache figured out." And you're like, "Oh, wait a minute, UTM isn't quite working right." You know, that's kind of Tom's style, is to really mess with people. No, I'm kidding.
I'm not. I would.
Tom's not.
So, well, speaking about Tom, this is another thing that he pulled. Tom, did you pull this from PhysiCalc?
I did it using Fizzy. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to share this screen. We're going to show you guys. This is something that Tom wanted to bring up and share. These coordinates vary by the last digit in your decimal minute, right? So this one, north 000100, west 0000100, right? And so this is the one digit that's different. So we went up one digit in the last digit of your decimal minutes. And you can see out here that it moved you 6.046275 feet. That's more or less at the equator. It moved you 1 meter north, or I'm sorry, 2 meters, 6 feet.
6 feet.
So it moved you 6 feet north by changing just that one digit. And by the same thing here, we changed just this one digit right here, the last one in the west coordinates, to move you, just over 6 feet
West.
to the west.
A little bit more. Yeah, 6.08. Yeah.
Right. And so
And then that third one, I changed the last digit in both of them. So
right.
You're going diagonal.
So you change the one there and the one there, and it moved you 8.579 feet in a northwest direction, right?
Oh, okay, right.
So you
Almost
you went one digit north and one digit further west, and it moved you almost a little over 8.5 feet.
Yeah.
And then we changed it a little bit. This is at north 30, right? And so this was at north 00. This is at north 30, right? And you can see that it really doesn't change a whole lot in your movings north and south, right? You're 6.04 feet at the equator, and you're 6.06 feet at 30 degrees of latitude.
But look at east-west.
Yeah, but look at you exactly. So your longitude, we just changed again, just that one digit, and you moved 5.27 feet. So 5.25 feet versus 6 feet here, right?
Right.
So, and then in your diagonal move, by moving one digit north and then one digit west, you moved 8.03 feet from 8.57, right? So, right. And then Tom pulled these coordinates for north 60 degrees, and this works similarly going south, right? So south 30 degrees will still move you the same amount, and south 60 degrees will move you the same numbers. But again, here you are at north 60 degrees, and if you just change just the one digit, the final digit in your decimal minutes by one, you still move 6.09 feet north, right? So from 6.04. So your one digit consistently is moving you right at 6 feet north and south, regardless of how high up
on the earth, right,
away from the equator you get. Now, where that matters, however, is in your west in longitudes, right? Longitude, yeah. So you move just this one decimal place at north 60, And instead of moving 6.08 feet, you move 3.04, right? You've moved now half the distance, you know.
It's interesting because Finland, if anybody's wondering, it's at 61 north. So here's a good example of if you ever go to Finland and geocache, like you're talking about, it's amazing.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat to see these. You know, Tom pulled all of this stuff out of PhysiCalc, and was excited about
3
sharing
feet
it,
versus
you know. And so, yeah, you can see where you definitely, you know, move different amounts of space just by moving one decimal place in your coordinate format. So if you ever get to some place that has a first define and you get there and you're like, no, there's no way, and you're thinking the guy had to have fat fingered it, you know, fat fingered his coordinates when he put them in, which has happened before.
Yeah.
And you start sitting there thinking, well, you know, how far off could it really be if I change this one digit? How far does it move you? Well, depending on where you're at in the world, north or south, it's going to move you about 6 feet. You know,
Yeah.
east and west will move you, you know, between 6 and 3 feet, give or take, you know, depending on how far north or south in the hemisphere you are. So it's kind of a neat thing to see. I'm glad that Tom
That is interesting.
pulled all of this and decided to share it. 'Cause,
Interesting.
yeah, definitely interesting.
Well, I'll bring it up for a couple points because, you know, I hear newbies say, "Oh, my GPS said I was accurate within 2 meters," and I'm like, "Okay, your GPS is that accurate, but your coordinate system isn't."
Right.
Right.
And if you don't take really good coordinates, then yeah, if you're off 2 or 3 digits in that last place, well, that's 20 feet easy.
Yeah, those aren't seconds; those are minutes.
Yeah. So another neat thing that Tom pulled was this was make a square. Tom, you said there was a cache that was like this?
Yeah, there was a puzzle like this where, and I thought, well, this is odd. We're just gonna end up where we started, and you don't end up where you start. So, in this puzzle, he gave you a particular spot, and he told you to go 24.9 degrees north and make the square. Turn. I think he said turn right and make the square. So you do a projection from where you started, 24.9 miles to the north, get a new spot, and from there you do a projection 24.9 miles at 90 degrees, and then. So I did it here. We're starting at the Hemisphere Tower, downtown San Antonio, and I thought, well, let's run a marathon. So we're doing 26 miles at 0 degrees there. And
And
then
that gives you your second point.
and then from there I projected 26.2 miles to the east at 90.
90 degrees, right?
And that gives you 0.3.
And then 26.2 miles due south 180.
That gives you 0.4.
And 26.2 miles to the west. And are you back where you started?
Back to where you are. Whoa.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. The difference between 0.1 and 0.5, which I found interesting, but I knew was going to happen when we were discussing this, is 740 feet. So you're 740 feet to the east of where you started, which would be a really cool puzzle cache for people to tell them to
Oh, wow.
waypoints like that. And then 0.5 would be where the final container is. Well, you know, there's a good distance between, you know, 750 feet on the ground's a pretty good little walk.
Yeah, it's
No.
a couple football fields, more,
A little more than 2.5 football fields.
2.5 football fields. So that's interesting.
So to create it, you get your hiding spot, and you just run this backwards. And then wherever you ended up for point 1, that's where you would show it on the map.
That's where you could put your pin for your puzzle cache.
Yeah.
Right.
Why do you not end up back at the same place?
Because
we just went over
we
this.
just went
It's
over
because
that.
of
You're
that.
going up north. They go like that. They're not like this. They're like
They go like that.
That's right. So
There you go.
The longitudinal move on ours at the equator was 6 feet.
Yep.
Right, but 30 degrees up
Curvature.
was right. So you're having to account for that.
It's amazing how much it is.
Right.
Over 26 miles. I mean, obviously 26 miles is quite a bit, but
it moved you in the end 740 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference between going your 26.2 miles here versus here on the globe.
Right.
Was 740 feet.
Yeah.
Right? So as you moved east or west from your north coordinates up here, right, from these ones up higher, you moved a greater amount, not a greater amount of space. You just moved further on the map,
right,
to account for the curvature of the globe. And then when you came back down, you weren't. It didn't make a perfect square.
But since you're attempting a perfect square, as far as on paper, you're doing 90-degree angles to make a square, though.
Right, but you're doing 90-degree angles on a grapefruit.
So it's not a flat Earth. I'm still debating that.
Not according to NASA. They apparently claim they have taken pictures from the moon.
I don't know that because I'm a charter member of Flat Earth Society, and I don't believe any of that. But that's for another show. That's for another show. Whoops. That's for the show. All right.
That'd be a pretty weird coordinate system for flat Earth.
Well, that's what MGRS is. They've taken the world and laid it out flat.
The globe and made it flat.
Yeah, oh man, and so it's a really crazy, especially like when I was map reading in Europe, and then all of a sudden, like there's a square that's just missing on the map, and you're like, but where
the heck?
Where did this square kilometer go? And they're like, oh well, we just did away with it to compensate for the curvature of the Earth.
It changes.
You just did away with it?
What? You did what?
It just straight up doesn't exist on, when we were doing map reading from like Finland or northern Russia for some of these maps that we had.
Yeah.
Some of the grid squares were not kosher. So.
Wow.
Y'all didn't mess with people and say, well, that grid's not there anymore because we blew it off the map.
That's where the Red October is hiding at.
That's right.
So, let's see, what else do we have here?
Got the video if you want to show that video, or also if you want to show people the current mistake on geocaching.com. Sorry, geocaching.com, but you've got an error.
It's a fun little.
It's a little fun error, I guess.
We'll look at that. Can you show that video?
Yeah, I'll show the video.
That video's good.
Yeah, show that video of the lumpy Earth.
It's not very long, but it really is really good. It's really well done. So thank you. Let me do that real quick.
I am in Greenwich, and I am standing on the prime meridian, 0 degrees of longitude. In the Eastern Hemisphere, that foot is in the Western. Except, my GPS tells me that I'm actually about 100 meters west of the meridian. It's actually a little way over there. And that's not an accuracy problem. The reading is correct. So what's going on? Well, first of all, the Earth. It is shaped like a slightly squashed sphere, but that's an approximation. In reality, it is not a perfect spheroid. And I'm not just talking mountains and valleys here. The entire thing is a little bit lumpy. So if you're designing a latitude and longitude system, you cannot take into account all those lumps. Instead, you pick a mathematical, perfect spheroid, one that is as close as you can reasonably get. Now, the Ordnance Survey, the wonderfully named British government department that deals with maps, chose their spheroid in 1936, based on an earlier survey by Victorian Astronomer Royal George Airy. All official British government maps to this day use that spheroid as their base. And it works brilliantly, incredibly well for the UK, where the measurements were taken. Unfortunately, the world is lumpy, and Airy's measurements weren't quite as good for the rest of the globe. So over the years, dozens of other spheroids have been chosen around the world, each one fitting best to a particular country. But no one minded that for a very long time because the resulting maps were never used together. They were on paper, so any map that was accurate enough that the spheroid could make a real difference would only cover a tiny area of the world. And besides, you navigated using local landmarks. You never had a magic device that said, here are some numbers, you are here. But then the space race came along, and suddenly we had satellites, and we had the need for one standardized latitude and longitude for the world, so you knew your missiles were going to hit the right target. So in the 50s, over at Johns Hopkins University in the US, the Applied Physics Laboratory and the US Navy set up the first satellite navigation system. And as the base point for their calculations, they used their latitude and longitude that they knew based on their North American spheroid. Now, that spheroid then changed many times over the years. The scientific world refined its calculations, but that baseline stuck for American systems. You can probably see where this is going. The GPS system, an American military invention that's now a global standard, uses a descendant of the American spheroid and baseline. The Royal Observatory up on that hill continues to use the British spheroid because, well, our government uses that spheroid because it's more accurate for geographic calculations within Britain, but also because it would be incredibly inconvenient to move that hill 100 meters that way. Who's right? Both of them. Neither of them. The truth is, there can be no actual zero meridian. First of all, because the Earth is lumpy, it's always going to be a little bit wrong, but also because the Earth's tectonic plates move. According to GPS, Greenwich is moving, and so is pretty much every other point on land. Modern latitude and longitude are a mathematical abstraction, nothing more. So I really am in both hemispheres at once. It just depends how you measure it.
All right, so I love that. That's and I really like how he was like,
Yeah.
The Earth is lumpy.
It's lumpy.
And
it is well done.
And it really is. And it's, as we were talking about before the show, we've got what's called an equatorial bulge. And so the Earth is really like if you gently squeezed a tennis ball.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of got this spare tire around the midsection.
That's right.
You know,
Earth's eaten a few too many pumpkin pies in its life and doesn't do the exercise it needs to.
Yeah.
Show, and we ran out of time. So the satellites, aren't they measuring from fixed spots on the planet? Make sure they're in the same spot, but yet the plates are all moving. So if you pick if it's beaming to this antenna over here and this antenna over there, and they're not on the same plate, then tectonic plate and things are moving. And
Yeah, I mean, things are the Earth is dynamically moving all the time. Many earthquakes here and whatnot. So that's one of the reasons why you heard him say in the video that they've changed their format several times. And so there's that NAD 83 and NAD 87 and WGS 84, right? And if you sit there and look at I'll use this company as an example because I have multiple of their GPS receivers. But if you look in Garmin's, you can pick whether you're using NAD 83, NAD 87, or WGS 84, you can pick which coordinate database you or spheroid, from what the guy in the video was saying, you can pick which one of those you wanted to use, and the difference between the two is incredibly different. So
Right.
It's always kind of fun to sit there and look at the difference between like NAT 83 and NAT 87 and WGS 84, which those were the three most common that
Right.
you could change them in a plugger, you can change them in your handheld GPS from one format to the other. You just have to be aware when you're changing it. But if you wanted to make a cool puzzle that not very many people would be able to get right away,
Right.
Changing your coordinate system from NAT 83 to NAT 87, or one of these other formats that we don't use anymore because we almost all use WGS 84 now. Hey, throw a wrench in somebody's plans.
Geocaching Toolbox had a boatload of them in there, so if
Yeah.
you make a puzzle to do that, you need to give some kind of clue that points where to go.
We'll have WGS 85
85.
in 2024, so you could maybe make one. You could really make things wonky coming up in a few years. Well, Nat, what did you say, Nat? We have two different Nats, right now, not Nat.
NAD 83 and NAD 87.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So
27.
is it 27? Yeah.
That's 27. Because I've run into that because utility industry and
Oh yeah.
the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality wants to know where every one of your emission points is at. Well, you've got to be on the same page with them on what coordinate system they're using. So I've run into that trouble too.
Yeah, NAD 27 and NAD 83. So yeah, there's and the coordinates are not the same. So if you go look for benchmark discs,
yeah,
and you sit there, so they'll sit there and tell you that originally the GPS coordinates for this were given in this format, and they have been scaled to hopefully be correct in in a different format now. That's not always the case. Sometimes the coordinates are nowhere near right. But it's that's one of the ways that hunting for benchmarks. It's fun trying to find them because of some of that stuff.
I wonder if the trig ones too are that way. But interesting, this datum uses the Clark ellipsoid of 1866 with a fixed latitude and longitude at Meads Ranch in Kansas. How they figured that was the place to make. Weird. I wonder if that's the same because we have benchmarks in the U.S., but in other parts of the world, they're trig points, I think, right? I gotta look that up. I think it's trig points. So, like, if you're in Canada, I think they're called. I'm checking. I'll make sure I don't misspeak. I'm sure I'll misspeak. It's part of triangulation stations. I mean, those trig points is kind of another way some people say that. I don't know if they're in all each one has a little bit different. Not each one, but a lot of them do different things as far as we call them bench points. They're in Australia. They're called geodetic survey markers.
Mm-hmm.
In in Japan, they're considered triangulation points. Trig beacons is another way to put it. That's South Africa. Triangulation pillars in Spain. So there's a couple different systems out there.
All right, so
but cool and useful for puzzles.
This Bermuda 1957 map puzzle, that's ringing a bell in my head. I think I've seen that puzzle.
All right, Gary. So you know that Meade Ranch triangulation station that you talked about just now?
Huh?
All right. So you ready? When did they use that?
It said 1866, but
All right. So the geographical center of the lower 48 states is just outside of Lebanon, Kansas, which is 42 miles from where that Meade Ranch triangulation station disc is.
Really?
So you're looking at 42 miles, give or take, to the geographical center of the continental United States.
Yeah.
Maybe that might have had something to do with it. There is looking at it on the internet. There is a really cool benchmark disc, that Charles needs to go and find. There's also a really cool one, apparently 40 miles north at the geographical center of the continental United States. But it's kind of a neat deal that there's probably they use that as a rough guess for where the geographical center of the U.S. was back in the 18 whatevers, because the actual one is not far. It's just 42 miles up the road outside of Lebanon, Kansas.
I wonder if you could find, I mean, I'm sure there are, but I wonder if anybody has ever taken the time to go, well, as you travel around your country, whatever your country happens to be, finding the geographical centers of your provinces, in those kind of things. Like currently, at the moment, Charles is in Colorado. Here is the geographical center of Colorado, just to use that for an example. But I think you can do this in any of your locales. So there's the geographical center of Colorado, which is interesting that it's exactly
39 degrees north.
It's Park County, 40 miles west of Colorado Springs and southwest of Castle Rock. It's at exactly 39 degrees north, but a little different on the west.
Yeah. Well, and we've probably all three been to the geographical center of Texas, or as close as we can get to it. It's on private property, but there is a giant lookout tower at the geographical center of Texas, which is just outside of Brady, Texas.
That's correct.
So
there's a marker.
There's a roadside park and a pull off and a marker, a historical marker, and there's a tower out there that you can actually climb up. And at the time that I went up there, there was a lookout, a sight glass that had a pair of crosshairs in the end of it, and you could look through it, and it actually pointed out to the crosshairs, ended up pointing directly out to where the center of the state was geographically. But it was like something like 2-point-something miles from the roadside park area that's there. But you climbed up in that tower that was, 60 feet tall.
Oh, okay.
And it shot a little deal out across this rancher's land. And there used to be a post out there with like a giant red, 6-inch square metal post with a little sign on it, so you knew where the geographical center was. So it was kind of neat.
Yeah. It's an interesting, I mean, if you're near one, if you live near one, kind of cool. Put a cache there if you can.
Yeah, the one the one that was there at that roadside pull off in Brady was archived. I don't know if there's a new one there or not yet, but so all right, let's look at a couple of these caches before with the last few minutes that we got. We'll look at this one first. It's called UTM Madness. It's one that Gary pulled out of thin air somewhere.
It was Colorado, and it was it's your buddy.
No, this one isn't.
Oh, is it? UTM
This
Madness
one-
is not? Okay, I was thinking the one that's Denali's, but
Yeah, he's got the next one we're going to look at. The next two.
okay.
So this one is UTM Madness.
UTM Madness.
It's a difficulty 3 terrain too. It is in Indiana, of all crazy states.
Right.
But he gives you a he tells you that you're going to have to use UTM coordinates to figure this thing all out.
Right.
He said that you're standing currently in zone 16 Sierra, and that you're 75 kilometers west of the center of the 16 zone.
I put it in the chat room in case people are looking for it, by the way.
Yeah. And what? So,
Just in case somebody was looking for it, it's in the chat room.
yeah, so it's kind of neat. The coordinates for the final he gives you in UTM down here at the bottom. And that he says you need to go to a guardrail to figure out what the what numbers you need,
Right.
and whatnot. But it's kind of a neat deal. Most people don't ever deal with UTM coordinates, but they are listed right here on the cache page.
That's true.
Underneath your degrees, decimal, minutes format is UTM on every cache page. But a lot of people don't mess with them because they don't really understand how the UTM system works. So this one wouldn't be hard if you knew what 2-digit numbers that were side by side with a space in between them. So you're looking for a 4-digit number with a space in there on a guardrail. You probably could figure this out with Google Earth.
Right.
If you wanted to be sneaky. But this is one that uses an alternative format for figuring out where the cache container is.
That's cool.
So UTM coordinates for that. It's been found 6 times.
Nice.
Not very old, so it's right at about a year old.
Yeah.
Coming up on a year old. So not a bad little cache. The next one we'll look at is UTM UV. This one is a puzzle cache by Denali 41. Denali 41 is a Colorado cacher who is a avid mountain climber. And so almost all of his maps and caches that he has, he uses a alternate. He uses a decimal degrees for almost all of his caches. So anytime that he has a spot where he can put something that is a odd format for most people, it's going to end up being the decimal degrees, because that's what most of his maps are either decimal degrees or UTM, and either way, it's not a format that a lot of people use. This one is a 3-stage.
And you can't take decimal degrees and try to fit it into a standard lat long. If you try to throw in a standard lat long, you're off.
You're off by a long ways.
You're not even. Yeah, they're completely different. In Tom's example, you had north 29, and then the next minute, the thing after 29 was 35. But in decimal degrees for that same spot, it was 29.58. So
Right.
not even
Not
So you-
nowhere close.
you can't force it in. You can't fit that round peg in that square hole.
No. And he's got the UV attribute on this and the field puzzle attribute. So you know when you get to stage 1, he's going to give you a redirector to stage 2, but he's going to give it to you in something that's probably an oddball format. I can say this because I have found one of his puzzle caches that has done that, and I'll share that real quick. This one is up in northern Colorado, Peterson's Ridge Multi. We got this one while we were living in Wyoming, and we're completing the Wyoming County Challenge, and snuck down into Colorado to grab a county because we're right on the border. And so anyhow, you go to the given coordinates for this, and at the time we found he goes into a lot about Peterson's Ridge and ranked peaks and what qualifies as a ranked peak, which really doesn't have a whole lot to do with anything except just general knowledge.
Right.
But you get to the given coordinates for this one. Excuse me.
Put it in the chat room as well. GC3W900.
Right. And so this one, you get there, and he's got a bison tube now and like a matchstick container. And inside those, it gives you a redirector. Now, his redirector for this one says add 512 meters to your eastings, and then add 300 and something meters to your northings.
Right.
And go there. And when I sat there and got there and I looked at that and was like, what is he talking about?
What?
And so I had to do some Google searching and whatnot. And
Right.
but we ended up getting up over this hill and finding this cache container. And it was, kind of a really cool view of it. But he had this old glass like peanut jar, and it was hidden up there, but had some good views up there on top of that hill and whatnot. But he's very famous around Colorado for having some a lot of UTM or a lot of decimal degree redirectors in his caches, and they're really fun. They're well done, and for as many caches as he has out there, I have only DNF'd one where the container was actually legitimately missing.
Oh wow! So he
has
well.
Yeah, he has caches in Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, probably some down in New Mexico, up in the Rockies, and just are phenomenally maintained. He lanyards most of them so that they won't migrate off with snow or wind, and are generally well done caches.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah, and so I guess one last thing about what 3 words.
Yeah.
And what 3 words is divided into 3-meter squares. So 3 meters by 3 meters, it gives you
kind of cool.
9 feet by 9 feet squares, 9 foot by 9 foot squares.
Right. That's why I did the one earlier to see if people, and of course Lori saw that, but I'm sure other people saw it too, but it's different. But you ever see anything, if you're doing a puzzle or you're trying to solve a puzzle and you end up with something like engine winks smile and you're like, what? That's the
crown of the Statue of Liberty.
That's the crown of the Statue of Liberty. But If you think about it, though, you could, because we, as you guys mentioned, as Tom loves to mention, he goes, there's probably somewhere on a cache page the coordinates to the cache, but you don't have to give coordinates. You can give other things that get you to the same place.
So in my area, there's quite a few puzzles that use them what 3 words, and they'll have 3 words bolded in the thing. But there's also a few puzzles that use that as a red herring too.
Oh yeah, you could use it that way too. But I guess you could be real tricky, and you could take the word engine, and you could maybe translate that into something else, and make them come back to English or to some other language. Well, no, it has to come back to English. It has to come back to that word.
Well, you could put them out of order.
Right.
Because if you put those same 3 words in the what 3 words thing, but put them in a different order,
Yeah.
it's probably another point on the planet.
Interesting. I'll try that real quick.
And so you just have to put them in the order that gets you within 2 miles of the posted coordinates, and you got it.
I'm gonna try to put smile in the front. I'm gonna try to do smile engine winks. Where does it take me to? Where am I?
I'm gonna do winks engine smile.
Smile engine winks. Somewhere in Connecticut.
Yeah, that's not within 2 miles of the Statue of Liberty.
No, it's not. But interesting. In
And where did yours end up, Tom?
Manhattan. Is that what it said? No.
I'm.
I thought it said.
Smile engine winks is west of New Haven.
What did I do? Engine wink smile.
Yeah, I thought you were doing engine wink smile. I could do that. No, because that's the original.
Engine smile winks.
Winks smile engine was the one you're doing, I think.
All right, winks. That smile.
Winks.
That engine.
Smile engine. That takes me to it's over in in Australia.
Wanna Brave Victoria.
Victoria. Yeah. Yeah. So only one proper format for the what 3 words is going to put you in the right spot. So.
Oh yeah, and if you do plurals, they're different. So if you do wink smile engine, you're in Surrey, England. So yeah, what 3 words can be a real dastardly.
Oh, I like that. I like that last one. The last one's kind of near the 8 cache. Wink smiled engine.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Snohomish, Washington. That's near the 8 cache.
Near the right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh well. All right.
So
have fun with what 3 words, because there's a lot. You can do a lot of puzzles with that.
You can, and you can do a lot of puzzles with just flipping coordinate formats.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are several tools: Cache Sleuth, the Minnesota website, PhysiCalc, Geocache Toolbox. Any of those will be able to convert those to usable coordinates for you guys. And it's there's a lot of fun to be had with it. There's a lot of headaches to be had with it as well. Take it with a grain of salt.
Puzzlers go crazy.
That's right. So yeah,
well,
right.
No, well, if you what 3 word electric water boy, he's sitting in Selma, Texas right now.
He is. He's right there. He's right there, and that's interesting. That's why. No, have you done what 3 words on electric water boy to see what it goes to?
No, there's nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, buddy. We'll go change the system for you.
That's right.
Electric water boy, what 3 words is in Selma, Texas. I know that.
But there's some places you use this what 3 words is for their mail delivery.
Oh, really?
That's what they came up with it for.
Right.
Search and rescue in Colorado uses it.
Right, because it's quick, and they can, and you immediately have it, and you don't have to give out you. Because sometimes it's hard to understand somebody if they're like giving you numbers and stuff, and dot this and dot that. Yeah. All right, we done?
We're done. Tom,
We're done.
I believe we can put a fork in us.
Put a fork in it. Here we go.